We can start our program. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Beatrice Coda. I'm the head of unit in CINEA for the Connecting Europe Facility Energy unit and program. And I have the pleasure to introduce you today an Info Day program in which we will explain all what is relevant to apply for the Connecting Europe Facility call for cross-border renewable energy projects, works and studies. This call follows the approval of the new list of what we call status projects, and now includes 8 CBRS status projects that can apply to this call, for which we have an indicative EU funding available of 80 million euro. So if you go to the next slide, you can see the program of today. So we have the pleasure to have with us our colleagues from DGNR, so in particular Victor Charbonnier, who will explain the policy context of the CBRS and the call objectives. I will follow with a presentation on how we are going to evaluate and select projects under this call, and follow up with a Q&A with participants. As our colleagues from DGNR, they are not staying too long, we can also take a few questions, if there will be any, on the policy context immediately after the presentation of Victor. We will have then at around 15:20 a coffee break, and we will follow with the second part of the program, which will cover a lot of, let's say, practical tips and tips on the key recipe for success, so how to prepare a successful proposal. This will be done by my colleague Luisa. Then information on the budgetary, let's say, framework for the proposals, and information on procurement. With this will be done by my colleague Gianluca. Then we will have another presentation, a practical one, to help you to submit a proposal in the EU funding and tender portal. Again, my colleague Gloria will be there. And then a presentation from our legal advisor, Giulia Fraschetti, which will introduce you to the model grant agreement. So what happens after you have been successful in the selection process, and you will be invited to prepare a grant agreement with CINEA. Again, we can close with question and answers with participants. Now with this, I want to close the presentation of the program. Please also note that the Info Day will be recorded, so we'll make the video recording available for you, and we will put them on the websites, and you will also receive the slides. So let's go a bit with introduction to the CEF Energy call for works and studies. So for those of you who are not, let's say, yet totally familiar with the Connecting Europe Facility, I think here what you have to retain is that the CEF program is a funding program specifically dedicated to support the deployment on infrastructure in Europe. And we have a sector dedicated to energy, infrastructure and projects, what we call Connecting Europe Facility Energy, which makes available 5.84 billion euro out of the overall envelope of 33 billion euro, which covers also the transport and the digital window. This EU funding amount is available in the time frame 2021-2027 to support projects of common interest, so projects which are selected under the Trans-European Network framework for energy, and the projects of what we call cross-border projects in the field of renewable energies. So projects that ultimately support the cooperation between member states to develop joint project, statistical transfer, and so all what concerns cooperation mechanism between member states. The next slide. So here, as you are successfully, let's say, labeled the CBRS project, you know well, let's say, what has been the process to get to you, let's say until that, so until having received the status. So here I would just like to give you an overview of the projects which so far, as of let's say today, as of the adoption of the last list which entered into force at the end of October 2024, so the last month. So this is an overview of the projects which have received the status. So the list covers 8 projects, as we said, and this is information also for those who will follow the recording separately. So there are projects that cover different technologies, so from onshore cross-border wind to offshore wind parks, to projects related to green hydrogen value chain. We have 2, and also, for example, an energy island, as well as a hydropower project. The next slide. Now, this slide gives you information about the state of play for CEF Energy that covers indeed the time frame 2014-2024, as CEF Energy indeed started as of 2014, while the window on cross-border renewables exists only as of 2021. So here you see that the bulk of the funding has gone through the years to projects mainly in electricity transmission, followed by gas, which is a bit story of the past, as the European Union in CEF does not finance gas projects anymore. But also with the time we have developed a larger portfolio on smart electricity grids and CO2 network. Now we are very pleased to say that through the calls in CBRS that have been launched so far as of 2021, we are also growing our portfolio of actions and financing on the CBRS project. So so far we have 14 actions approved, and out of which 2 correspond to works and 12 correspond to studies. So for a total amount of 92 million euro. You should also know that CBRS, out of the 5.8 billion euro allocated in the period 2021-2027, the CBRS window can allocate funding earmarked to it up to 850 million euro. So there is still, let's say, quite some budget available in this window to finance new projects. So in fact, the state of play of the CEF Energy program is such that we still have 3 billion euro to be allocated until 2027, and CINEA intends to launch a call for proposals in the CBRS sector every year until the end of 2027. So this is the planning. This will be done in combination with the launch of new expression for status. So to go in parallel, so that, let's say, new projects can become can get the label of the status label, and can then get to the next CEF call for studies and works. So I hope this was clear and that was useful, and I now want to conclude this first introductory part and give the floor to Victor Charbonnier, who is policy officers in the unit Renewables and Energy System Integration Policy in DG Ener, to provide you the policy context and key message important for this call. Please, Victor, the floor is yours.
Beatrice. I will keep my camera turned off. I'm sorry, because my signal is a bit poor. So thank you for organizing this info day, and welcome to everyone. Victor Charbonnier. I'm working in the C Directorate of DG Energy in the unit that is coordinating this program. If you move to the next slide, so I would like to provide a bit of set the scene, let's say, for why we do this program. So in fact, it's really embedded into the overall strategy of the Commission, which had launched a flagship initiative that you have heard, the European Green Deal, a few years ago.
Yeah.
And that has...
Victor, we cannot hear you. Perhaps your volume is too low?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Yep, agree.
Okay, thank you. So I was saying the CBRS program really is at the, in serving the purpose of the European Green Deal, which has translated into an ambitious objective for the European Union, which is to achieve climate neutrality by 2050. Already for 2030, that has translated into a target for 55% reduction in our greenhouse gas emissions. And a key means to achieve this target is to speed up on the deployment of renewables. So actually, if you move to the next slide, you will see how this ambition in renewable development has really increased over the past years, following different initiatives. Last one being the REPowerEU initiative, which really aimed to replace our dependency on Russian gas imports by a faster deployment for renewables. There has been also leading to the review of the revised renewable energy directive. We have now new binding targets for achieving this deployment by 2030 of 42.5% in the share of energy demands, and an aspirational additional share of 2.5%, so 45% in total. And that comes with very concrete measures to speed up the deployment around permitting, around faster deployment of e-mobility, on the uptake of power purchase agreements, and also on regional cooperation. That's where the CBRS program comes into play. There is now an obligation for the member states to set up a mandatory cooperation framework for joint projects by actually the end of next year. And they should endeavor to develop joint projects together by 2030 in the framework of that program. And that's actually 3 projects for the countries that have an electricity consumption that is more than 100 terawatt-hour. So there's really, with this obligation, a drive to get more application also into the CBRS program. Now, if you move to the next slides, the CBRS program is not only about decarbonization, it is a lot about that, but it's also aimed to, complete the internal energy market, hence the security of supply of the participating member states. We do see benefits of this project also in enabling RES integration in the electricity grids, because this project can have also like storage components, grid components, but also in other sectors, as we also open the door for projects that will help decarbonize other sectors. We also welcome and give emphasis on this project that facilitate the uptake of innovative RES technology, because we in fact have an indicative target in the revised Renewable Energy Directive of 5% for the development of these technologies. So it's really a multifaceted program in that sense. It's a 2-stage program. Beatrice explained it very well. So we had the CBRS list that you made it in October, entered into force, and now works in studies phase open. It's a very good sign that we have also an increase of the budget year on year. Last year it was 50 million only. Now we have raised it to 80 million. So yeah, it shows a positive dynamic of the program. The next and last slide is about the main policy aspects to consider in that call. Just to say that the components that are eligible for funding will be the ones that are in the technical documentation that accompanies the CBRS status list, and that can be found on the GNR website. I'm sure if you have not seen it, we will share the link to that. And it's key to remind that the RES components generation should really be at the core of every application. So you can have eligibility of non-RES components, but they should not be standalone projects, and they should be also in the technical documentation. Very important, I think, to remind that. And all that is guided by the delegated acts that establish the specific criteria for the selection of the civil RES project. That's on the right-hand side of the slide, the last bullet points, which clarifies which the eligibility of this of all these technical components. I will leave my intervention here, and I'm happy to take any questions you may have, or otherwise we'll deal with that in the Q&A session a bit later.
Thank you, Victor. So now you can see me. So if there are some questions at this stage for Victor, I see a raised hand from Ion.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. So thank you so far for the presentation and for the option to ask questions. I'm Nicole from E.ON. And regarding the slide, I'm just trying to understand correctly. For studies, is the list of the technical documentation also the basis for the infrastructure parts, or could this be for studies other additional infrastructure components which are not yet listed in the technical documentation if they have an interplay with the RES component?
Thank you for
Or is
the
it
question.
limited also to the technical documentation?
Thank you for the question. It is the first option, so it has to be listed in technical documentation.
Yes, if I may complement what Victor has said, if you read the call text, which is the official text, and I will go through the call text, some elements, you will read that this is explicitly written under the description of the scope for studies. Yep. Do we have more questions? No, I think Ion is still the raised hand that was before. Okay. So then I think we can go to the next part of our program. So this, let's say, my section will give you information on, let's say, the call, the timeline, the process of evaluation, and give you useful information on how to go through the award criteria, because this is the part where you will have to write down really your case on why at the end you need EU funding. So we'll provide you information on which basis, let's say, proposals are assessed and selected for funding. So first, some information on the call timeline. So the call, as I said, it has an indicative budget of 80 million. It was published, so the terms of reference were already published on the 8th of October, but it was open for submission only at the 22nd of October. We are having now the info day. The deadline for the call is to submit your proposal is 16th of January. Non-negotiable at 5 o'clock. We are, after that, CINEA and the Commission will perform the evaluation, which will last until around April 2025. After that, we will follow the approval of the CEF Coordination Committee, so consultation with member states. And in parallel, following that, we will launch the grant preparation for the successful applicant, as well as informing also those who have not been successful. This we intend to do after the CEF Coordination Committee, so starting from May. 2025, and we would like to close the grant agreement signature processes at the end of September 2025. So as, let's say, really as expected timeline. So for the evaluation process, if you go through the call text, you will see that there are requirements that relate to admissibility and eligibility criteria for the call. And this will be the first part of our evaluation. So we will check the compliance of the submitted proposal with these requirements. The proposals which respect these requirements will go through the second phase of the process, which is what we call the evaluation. And this is done in, let's say, against what you in the call text you call award criteria. And I will explain that in detail later on. Together with that, we also perform what we call operational capacity check, and also a financial capacity check will be done. And this I will also explain in a moment. Once this evaluation is, let's say, concluded at technical level, it's done by CINEA and with the support of external experts. There is a final evaluation committee and a final selection process, which is done at the commission level, by which, following the technical evaluation, the evaluation committee recommends a draft list of proposals and also set out the maximum funding that will go to each of the selected proposals. And then there will be, let's say, a follow-up formal adoption process at the commission level, as I explained previously, which is exactly, let's say, so this one. So we, following the evaluation committee, Commission will prepare a selection decision. There will be a consultation across the relevant services of the Commission. The member states will be consulted for their opinion through the CEF Coordination Committee. The Parliament will also be informed, and then follows, let's say, the formal adoption of the Commission selection decision, while in parallel CINEA launches also the grant agreement preparation and informs the applicants. Now, as I mentioned, the first step in the process is the admissibility eligibility. And when you read the call, they are the admissibility and eligibility criteria. They are spelled out in part 5 and 6, respectively, of the call. Now, we consider a proposal admissible if it's submitted before the call deadline. It has to be submitted by the funding and tender portal, and my colleague will explain how to do it later on. So we don't accept any other way, neither via email nor paper submissions are allowed. So the funding and tender portal is the only channel for submission. You have to have a lot of, and I say a lot because there are quite many documents that have to be, let's say, included in your submission. So the application, first of all, must be complete. So make sure that all the documents which are required in the call, they are put in your application, because we cannot do a follow-up on missing elements. And my colleague will go through to explain you in detail which documents they are. And you find them information, as I said, in section 5 of the call. Furthermore, the documents must be readable, they must be accessible and printable, and there is a limit to a maximum of 120 pages. So make your application succinct with the necessary information. Now, these were the admissibility requirements. Now let's go through the eligibility. So these already, let's say, were hinted partly by Victor in his presentation. So the call is for studies and works. And in order to be eligible, the action must contribute to the CBRS project, as identified in the Commission delegated regulation, which was approved last month. And as mentioned by Victor, and as you read clearly in the call text, the CBRS project is what is included in the Commission delegated regulation, but the elements of the project are covered by the technical documentation, which is published on DGNR website, which supports the delegated regulation. The eligibility covers both studies and works. So the definition of studies and works is in the CEF regulation. You can read, let's say, we will leave you the material so you can see what we define as studies. So generally, a study covers the preparatory phase of a project implementation, which could be feasibility, validation studies, fit studies, financial studies, and so on, for example, or can be even studies with physical intervention, so exploration of the sites. For works, we intend basically the construction of the construction phase of the project. So it's really the supply, it includes the supply of components, the deployment, the construction and installation activities related to the project until the acceptance of the installation and the launching of the project. So everything what follows, so the operational phase of the project. So when the project is in operation, the costs of that are not covered by CEF. So we basically cover only the investment cost until the commissioning phase. Now, important maybe general point is that a CBRS project can be a large project composed on several, let's say, activities. It's a cross-border project, so it can have activities in more than one member state. That's the purpose. So here the point is that you can apply to just a part of the activities of the CBRS project. So make sure that you make very well the link between the proposed actions or the proposed activities to see how they contribute to the CBRS project, so as a part, let's say, of the bigger puzzles. And ensure that what you propose is really coherent with the project. So here, let's continue, let's say, giving some indication about the scope of the action. And this is, again, what we have already said before, Victor and myself. So we distinguish that we have in a CBRS project a res generation aspect, which should be generally the dominant part of the CBRS project, but also we expect that this could be the dominant part of the proposed action. But it can also cover the non-renewable energy components of a project, provided that they comply with, let's say, with the rules of the main delegated act. And an action can also cover both the res generation and the non-res generation components. So here again, we repeat that both for studies and for works, what can be covered in the CEF application is, in practice, any of the elements that the CBRS status project contains in the technical documentation, which is attached to the delegated act. Now, examples of studies, you can read here, so there can be technical studies, front-end engineering design, feasibility studies, and so on. So while for studies, as I mentioned, the scope we expect to be related to the renewable energy generation, they can also cover the entirety of the, let's say, of the CBRS project, so cover also additional non-res elements, such as grid infrastructure, such as storage facility, and they can also cover the interplay between the two. And this is considered, let's say, fully in line, because provided that let's say it is explained in the application that this setup of the study, so the link between the res component and the non-res component, makes the effectiveness of the study higher. So if the whole project setup is captured as such. In terms of works, also, as Victor already explained, and as repeated, also for works, the list of components that can make the scope of the CBRS status, again, is included in the technical documentation. So here, and I will explain also later on when we go to the award criteria, if you cover, while it is expected that the majority of the works will relate to the renewable generation part, a proposal can also, for works, can also be made on covering a non-res component. However, it's important in this case that is justify why it is essential to cover this in the overall CBRS implementation and prove that this component is essential for renewable energy generation. The next one. Here we go to the eligibility. So we focused before on the eligibility of the scope of the action. Here, let's cover the eligibility of participants. So applicants must be legal entities, public or private bodies, and established in one of the eligible countries. So EU member states or non-EU countries. There is, let's say, a list of countries associated to the CEF that you can find also in the call text. I mentioned before that an important element is also the operational capacity. So for us, this is, let's say, an important point, because we want to be reassured that the applicant, they have the know-how, the qualification, and resources to successfully implement the project. So both in terms of exactly know-how and resources, human resources and financial resources, and I'll come to that in a moment, are a key part in the assessment of your proposal. So there will be, let's say, documents, and my colleagues will go through that, which you have to provide, where we ask you to demonstrate to us this operational capacity. So in particular, we ask applicants to provide applicants' activity reports and also a list of previous projects. So please make sure that you submit these reports. This is a point that we know many applicants stumble upon because they believe maybe it's not necessary or it's not important. No, they are mandatory requirements. So an applicant activity report, so a normal, let's say, activity report of a company, a standard one, must be included in the application together with, let's say, other documents, and we will go through that. So make sure that these documents are included, because we cannot do exceptions. There are some entities which are exempted by this operational capacity check, and they are public bodies, member states organization, TSOs, and international organizations. So this requirement does not apply to them. Again, we will also go through the assessment of the financial resources that you are putting in for, let's say, to implement the project. This is not necessarily done at the stage of your application. But please make sure that as soon as you are asked by us in any moment, even before the final evaluation is finalized, we will ask you documents to be provided, and they will be uploaded in the participant register. So we will also give you more information on that. So you'll be requested to upload these documents as soon as possible when we will ask you to do as applicant. Again, this requirement does not apply to public bodies, member states organization, TSOs, and other organizations, international, or if the individual requested grant amount is less than 60,000 euro. Now, we can also, so we will do an assessment of this documentation. And I leave you maybe this slide just for you to digest, because this is probably, let's say, relevant when we will start the grant preparation. But I think for you it's important to be prepared on let's say what you will be asked is successful. So we attach, let's say, importance to the role of the coordinator. And here, let's say, the assessment of the coordinator is crucial. The coordinator can be assessed as, let's say, suitable. And then if that is okay, no problem. But if it's not, if it's considered as a weak financial entity, this affects basically the possibility to receive pre-financing. So one option could be that we might ask you to choose another coordinator, or we will ask some mitigating measures, like, for example, bank guarantee, or we might not give you a pre-financing. So that's perhaps, let's say, a point of attention for you now when you prepare your proposal to decide who will be the coordinator. And here in the slide, you see, let's say, that we have a tool for financial capacity self-assessment. I don't have the time to go through it now, but we will give you the link and you can perhaps follow up on that. And if the result of this self-assessment is shows that the coordinator is weak, there could be, let's say, some indications that a guarantee might be needed. Okay. Now we go through the award criteria. So this is really, I think, a core part in the sense that we like really to give you information on how your proposal will be assessed and also what information we require from you. So it's we have in particular a form which is called Part B, among the documents that you have to provide to us, and there will be, let's say, some boxes in this Part B that you have to fill in, and they correspond to this award criteria. So in CEF Energy, we have 5 award criteria. So priority and urgency, maturity, quality, impact, and catalytic effect. So there is an assessment done which is both qualitative and quantitative. So to a qualitative assessment, we associate also a score that ranges from 0 to 5. And to pass the evaluation, you have to get, let's say, a minimum score of 3 out of a maximum score of 5 on each award criteria. If one award criterion is below the score of 3, you are not selected for funding. Okay, so what we expect to cover under the award criteria. So the first one is priority and urgency. So here you will have to give us explanations on how your proposed activities, so not the CBRES project in global, but what you intend to propose for CEF, is what will contribute in particular to the EU 2030 climate and energy targets and the RES targets. You should also explain why you are proposing an action at EU level compared to a national level action. We also look as appropriate to if there are synergetic elements with other sectors. So if your action contributes to, for example, brings benefits to the transport sector or the digital sector, so bring, let's say, significant benefits. So not only benefits, but there should be, let's say, a demonstration of significant benefits in terms of socioeconomic, climate, or environmental benefits for the entire project. I think you can also, let's say, build your case there. And last but not least, a point that refers to the discussion concerning the RES component, RES generation, and non-RES generation components. So here, all other things being equal for a project that for a CEF proposal for works, under this criterion, priority and urgency, proposal for works which relate to renewables generation component will be given priority under proposal over proposal which relate only to non-RES component in this award criterion. So this priority applies only to this award criterion, not to the other ones. Okay, the second criterion is maturity. Maturity means that what you are proposing is, let's say, is scheduled to start as soon as possible. So it's scheduled to be completed and carried out without delay. And that also we will evaluate whether the project is the next logical step in the CBRS project development. So what you're proposing is the natural follow-up in the implementation of the overall CBRS project. In this case, we can conclude, let's say, that the project will be mature enough to be financed under this call. Because if the activities will be carried out much later, or they are not, let's say, the logical step, because there are preceding steps which must happen before, let's say, your proposed activities, then it will mean that your proposed activities are not mature, and that they could be perhaps, let's say, proposed maybe to a later call of CEF. Indicatively, this is really a rule of the thumb. We give 6 months from the submission deadline for proposed activities to start under studies, and maximum 18 months for proposed activities under works from the submission deadline to start. So this is really, let's say, just to give you an order of magnitude of what we mean without delay. The project can be carried out without delay. So we have an expectation of a maximum 6 months delay for studies and maximum 18 months delay for works. Again, rule of the thumb. You will be asked information on cooperation mechanisms, and also in particular if information on procurement and permits will also be required you will also be required to provide info there. The next slide. So this is another award criterion, resources. So it's a kind of classical award criterion, in a sense that really this relates to the implementation of your project. So information on resources, financial and human to implement, organizational structure, risks, project management. Please be aware that we have a threshold of project management cost that should not exceed 10% of the total project cost. So be very much aware of that. In CEF Energy, we do not like this project management cost to be high, because we prefer to fund, let's say, the real, let's say, implementation, the core implementation activities of a study of our works. The next slide refers to a criterion which is quite, let's say, it has several elements. So it's what we call impact. And in impact, there are several, let's say, elements that are assessed. The first one relates to the need to overcome financial obstacles, such as those generated by insufficient commercial viability. So in order to be funded by CEF, the first thing that we will assess is whether, let's say, there are already sufficient commitments by the project taken, and whether there are any financial obstacles remaining that still, let's say, delay or prevent the project to go ahead. So a description of financial obstacles is the first point. This is true for studies and for works. For works, there are additional, let's say, requirement of demonstration of non-commercial viability of your project. So here the bar is higher, and we will ask you for works also to submit more documents to, like for example, the business plan to demonstrate this non-commercial viability. For works, we also ask you to assess, to provide information on the economic, social, environmental, and climate impact of your project, and whether your project brings significant cost saving and benefits for which you will be asked to also, let's say, to update the CBA or prepare, let's say, update or let's say consolidate your project specific CBA. Also to note that for works, this the last point is important, because we will assess whether these cost savings or benefits are significant. So if we will assess that these savings or benefits are not significant, then your score under this criterion will be below 3. And independent on the other elements like climate impact or cross-border dimension, then your proposal will receive a score below 2. So here also to note that for studies, when we look at financial obstacles, we generally understand and appreciate that the study phase, there are still many uncertainties in the project development. So the explanation that we require for studies is, let's say, probably less important than what we require for works, where indeed also we ask a demonstration on non-commercial viability. But please make sure that the case for you to ask for CEF funding is a solid one. Last point I didn't mention is also is assessing the cross-border dimension of the project, and this is true for both studies and for works. And last but not least is the work criterion catalytic effect of the union assistance. So here, building on your financial obstacles assessment and building on the evaluation of your financial commitments already taken, here we will still ask you for an additional, let's say, explanation on what will be the acceleration or facilitation of the EU grant for the envisaged cross-border RES project. And in particular for works, we will look at and evaluate and assess quantitatively whether there is a gap, a financing gap in the project that CEF can basically fill. And this is here where we will also determine whether, let's say, the financial assistance and the co-funding rate of CEF, what will be, let's say, the final amount of your for your application, which could be lower than what you have, let's say, requested for. Here, please, also we see still on the catalytic effect, we see that a number of projects have also benefited from recovery and resilience facility. So please, also important information indicate well whether, let's say, you expect to receive any EU support there, and please indicate it in quite detail, because we know that the project is composed by several parts, and please also make sure that the delineation of which parts are expected to be supported by the RRF. So please remain be quite detailed also in this part if applicable. As you know, one also general important rule is that no double funding is allowed. Okay, and I'm about to conclude my presentation. So the results of the evaluation will be, when we finish the evaluation, you will receive an evaluation result letter, and then we will invite you, for those who are successful, to a grant preparation. So, which is not a formal commitment, as still we will have to perform a lot of checks, which will be, for example, the validation of your legal entity, the financial capacity, other exclusion checks, and so on. So, and then if you believe that the evaluation procedure was flawed, you can also submit, you will receive, let's say, all the information on how to submit a complaint. So for those of you, we will receive let's say, a positive letter by CINEA. So as I mentioned, you will be invited to prepare the grant agreement, which is a fine-tune together, let's say, with the checks, with the other administrative and financial check, which I just mentioned. So we do not want a substantial change of your proposal. So please be very mindful of that. We otherwise, let's say, it will mean that the award decision against which your evaluation was, the evaluation of your proposal was done, cannot take place anymore. So it's just a fine-tuning that can be done on the basis of a model grant agreement, and my colleague Julia will explain you later on the main provisions. These provisions are not negotiable. We cannot change. And but already, let's say, you can find it in the portal reference document. And I think we can conclude here this presentation and leave some space for Q&A. I see there are some questions. Where are they? Below? So regarding synergies, do we only answer in the application form if the call has specific synergies? If a project could have synergies with transport sector pending a decision of governmental level, does one describe them? Well, it is, let's say, your responsibility what you put in the application, but indeed with synergies, we intend the synergies with transport sector. So it's synergies within, let's say, the CEF sectors. So if you believe that your proposal, let's say, your project will have synergies with the transport sector, I invite you to describe them. Yeah, and of course the state of play of the preparation of the project and of the governmental level. So anything that can, you know, reinforce, let's say, your case and provide a more precise description is of course welcome. Okay, so I hope this was clear. Question concerning RES versus non-RES for studies. It is possible to apply only for activities concerning non-RES, or is this only possible in combination with RES activities in the proposal? No, you can, as I mentioned, and you read in the call text, it is possible for studies to apply also for non-RES components only. So this is a possibility, and you can explain, I think, the rationale why you're only applying for non-RES. But yes, so such projects are eligible. So priority and urgency, could you confirm if we should use? When you're assessing this section, could you confirm if we should base the answer on the overall underlying project for which the studies are intended, rather than describing the added value of availability? In principle, the idea is that, let's say, you are applying for certain activities, so it would be better that you describe, let's say, the priority and urgency of this, let's say, of the activities you are proposing and why they are urgent to be, you know, to be carried out. In the context, let's say, of the CBRS, but I would focus in particular, let's say, to the activities that you are applying for. So why they are urgent and priority in the context of the CBRS project. And so building, let's say, a narrative that from the activities you are proposing builds to the CBRS project. It is also possible affiliated entity of one of the promoters. Yes. A formal letter for the promoter in which they give their consent for the affiliated entity. I think they should put it, no? Yeah. So the question is if it's possible that an affiliated entity, 100% daughter company of one of the promoters of the CBRS status, apply directly for CBRS grant. And if this is possible, what is required? a formal letter from the promoter in which they give their consent for the affiliated entity. So here the reply is yes, it is possible that the daughter company of the promoter applies. What we want to see is that there is a letter of support. So I think this is welcome and it should be put in any form, let's say, of formal endorsement. And I also would say that so a formal letter is I think is good. And let me also be again be mindful for what you need to submit as activity reports. So it's in this case, it's possible that your daughter company, so maybe your activity report refers, you have the one of the promoter, maybe you don't have an activity report on your own. So make sure that you to fulfill this requirement of activity reports, you see whether, let's say, your activities are part of the activity report of your mother company or something. So I want to repeat that because it's a typical mistake of also of affiliated entities. So make sure that also, let's say, the link is well evident, for example, in the activity reports, if I imagine maybe you don't have one on your own. Okay. Could you elaborate on what is meant by project maturity in terms of procurement needed? Should we indicate our readiness, or is it more a question asking, do you need procurement? Okay, so should we indicate our readiness for conducting procurement procedure, or is it more a question asking, do you need procurement for services and construction or for studies? I think the reply to the question is both. So first, you might need to procure outside your company some services or some studies, because you cannot carry out the studies in your company. So if you need procurement, yes, please explain why this is needed. But it's indeed, the maturity is important to see what is the state of play of these procedures. Because the procedures, when you apply for CEF, they might be already ongoing. Maybe you've already launched the tender. So just please write down, we have launched a tender and we expect, let's say, to finalize the procedure by this date. So, or we will launch the tender by this month. So yes, be there more accurate as possible and explain, so both the timeline and the rationale. Based on the guidelines, it is stated that under studies topic, there is no need to update the cost-benefit analysis. Is that correct? Yes, it is correct. Regarding application annex, letter of support, is it mentioned that we need to resubmit it? Will it be acceptable to use the previously submitted letter of support, or is it required to obtain newly signed letter with the same content? So on the documents, my colleagues will follow up later on. So we have a detailed presentation there. But already we can say that it's not acceptable to use the previously submitted letter of support. So the letter of support must be specific to the application, to the current application. So the content might be very similar, but if you are applying for a new funding support, then we need a new letter also with the correct date and correct reference. Okay, seems there is one person with the hand raised.
Hi, Ms. Koda.
Hello.
Dennis Beef here. I sent you some of the questions. Thank you for answering them, first of all. Secondly, I just wanted to ask you for further clarification on one of the questions which you just answered. When you said, I asked about the priority and urgency section, and you said that there we need to start building the narrative. So basically say which activities we're proposing on doing. And I just wanted to link it with what is asked further down in the application form. We're required to put the, when we go to the financial section, we have to put the NPV and IRR. And basically what I was thinking, if we need to include the financial metrics for the studies call as well, does it make more sense to actually, rather than calculating based solely on the studies, can we project these based on the anticipated outcomes and implementation of the full underlying project?
I'm not sure I understand your question in full, but if you refer to NPV and financial data with NPV, and they are of application for works, not for studies. But we do not require that for studies. But I do not follow, so if you maybe we can re-explain the link between the priority and urgency and the financial aspect.
I was referring to your answer in priority and urgency, because in this question asks whether we should describe the underlying action. Because for studies, normally you will get the feasibility studies, you get the environmental studies.
Yeah.
And you already said that it's good if we can say why these feasibility and environmental studies and all the other studies are urgent to do right now. And I was just linking this answer to the financial indicators. But if you're saying that the financial indicators are not relevant for studies projects, then
No,
I understand.
Well, you are
Thank
free
you.
to develop a narrative also linked to the financing, but if you believe that could be, let's say, I mean, good to give us a holistic understanding of the project. But financial indicators, so I'm just saying that financial indicators like what you have, FPV, NPV, or rate of return of your project, they are related to the business plan. And we do not ask such a detailed explanation for the studies phase. We know that projects at study phase, especially if they have feasibility, they do not have maybe this data available, so it's not mandatory. Okay, there are more questions, or one more question? Okay. Same question regarding environmental compliance files. In studies at the same basis, we are required to prepare a new file with the same content, or may we submit the previously provided document as the content remains the same? Well, again, I don't know if you, let's say, what is the state of, let's say, your environmental compliance file? But if you believe, let's say, that the content remain the same, perhaps you can just update the reference, the formal reference to the document, and so submit it, let's say, with the correct reference under the call. And if the content remains the same, then it remains the same. But I think that also from a formal point of view, we do not want that, let's say, applications of part of applications which were part of previous submissions, they are just, repeated as such. I think they have to be correctly framed, also with correct reference in the new application. So, sorry, there is another one. You mentioned again the importance of cross-border cooperation. Does it mean that you need the consortium project promoters from different member states, like the application for CEF? I understood it's also possible to apply via single applicant. Yes. Cross-border cooperation is how, if the activities go beyond, because this is a CBRS project, so a cross-border project, so possibly in your activities you will maybe cooperate with other, let's say, entities in the CBRS project, but that's not a formal requirement. So we would like you to explain that under cross-border impact, but it's not a formal requirement to apply the consortium. Indeed, one single applicant is enough. So no more questions on this part. Or there are more in the chat? No. Then we break for, okay. And we start at 3:30. Yeah. So, okay, then I think we...
I'm sorry, can I?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. So, sorry for the interruption. I just checked in the application form that is published on the Funding and Tenders portal, and for the financial maturity part, where it's the financial viability and commitments, in brackets it says that it's for both studies and works. And there the indicators are the financial net present value and financial internal rate of return.
Normally they should be, these values should be for works.
Okay.
Hmm?
So
Yeah,
we should
we are double
disregard it.
checking, but we never ask for NPV and financial rate of return for studies. Be reassured. But I'm checking if there is a mistake in the form. But I
Thank you.
it's not required for studies.
Apologies for the interruption again. Thank you.
No problem. We are here to clarify. Yeah. Okay. So the call deadline is, we put 30 in this call. Didn't we put more? 30, yes. So when setting the dates in the work plan, is there a specific latest possible deadline for the completion of activities? While this is naturally tied to the project's own development timeline, are there any final deadlines set from CINEA perspective? Yes, that's a good question, and I have forgotten to tell it before, but in my presentation. But indeed, in the call text, we have a final deadline, so what we call a project duration, a final project duration. So we expect activities to be in this call to be carried out until 31st December 2030. So please stick to that. If there is, let's say, there will be problems in the project and necessity to extend the project, we will see when the project is successful and already with a grant agreement in place. But please, in your proposals, prepare, let's say, the timeline of your activities until that date. The calls say extensions are possible if duly justified, but make sure your proposal includes as a, let's say, is built by this date. And mains, yes, indeed, the same question regarding the money usage. So this question is indeed, let's say, this timeline is indeed linked to the money. So it means that the final date for cost eligibility, it's December 31st December 2030. So there is another question, I don't know, raised hand.
Hi, thank you again. It's me again. I just remembered another question which we had when we were looking at the application form, and especially the maturity section. Could you perhaps shed some light on how we should distinguish between preparatory studies and studies? And I'm asking this because the way that we are configuring our project right now for the studies application, there are a few activities which could fall and be understood to be pre-feasibility activities. So some activities are part of at least what I would think is the scope of a preparatory study.
Look, in the call, there is no distinction between a preparatory study and a study. So in the call, preparatory activities, pre-feasibility, feasibility, they fall under studies definition. A technical study also falls under studies definition. So I don't have, let's say, a clear, let's say, suggestion to give you, because legally speaking, there is no distinction. So it is up to an applicant to define the scope of the activities, if it first need a preparatory phase and then a technical study, or so it's every applicant's responsibility to come up with you know, with the scope and the timeline.
Thank you for this answer. I wanted to ask, in that case, when we look at the application form, if we have, let's say, one activity which is part of pre-feasibility, do we still need to fill out the sections in the application form which refer to preparatory studies only? Because we qualify our project as a study. It's not a preparatory study. And if this is the
But
case,
I'm not sure. We have a different section in the application form which refers to preparatory studies and studies.
I was looking at the green brackets in the application form where you fill out the information, and
Okay.
in two places it says
Okay,
preparatory studies only.
Yeah, so okay, maybe there is a misunderstanding. My colleague Gianluca is looking at it, so is replying now. So Gianluca,
Thank
please.
you. Thank you very much.
Hi, Denise. Yeah, I mean, indeed, the template is the same, and indeed we had in the past different type of calls, including the preparatory study. But when you see in the box that we refer to the preparatory study, that's something that is not applicable for this call. So yeah, that box basically you can ignore. And maybe if I can also come back to the other question you had on the financial element of in the application form, there is indeed one box that refers for studies and works, and which might be a little bit misleading, but basically inside there in the explanation, you have a first question on the where you have to explain what is going to be your the financing of the project, whether it's on found or not. But the other part where we refer to the financial net rate, FNPVV, and the other financial parameters, these are only referring to works. So it's on
Thank
that
you.
box.
Thank you for the
It's only
confirmation.
about the co-financing basically. You're welcome.
So in the past, we had a different type of call as well, which was called preparatory studies. And the forms for CBRS, we had just one type of form, which covers preparatory studies and works. But now we don't have this type of call anymore under CBRS, preparatory studies. So a preparatory study falls now under the scope of this call. So just refer to studies, I would say. I'm sorry if that is a bit confusing. But it refers to a previous type of call that we have. When will be the final budget set? Indicative budget is 80 million euros. Well, the final budget will be set at, let's say, basically at the Commission decision. So when we receive the proposals and we will evaluate, we see, let's say, those who will be selected, what will be the funding gap, or let's say, so which reflects in the maximum EU grant amount that goes to each application. So normally we have set an indicative budget here for 80 million. If we receive good applications worth funding, the budget, let's say the final overall budget could be a bit higher. Let's say there are some flexibility rules in the budget for CEF. So at the end, let's say is after the evaluation and after setting determining the EU grant amount for each application, that the final overall budget will be determined. Okay, I think we break now. So thank you. I hope that was informative for you. We'll start at 15:30 with a second set of presentations and also more possibilities to ask questions if needed. Okay, thank you. See you in 15 minutes, 13 minutes. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. And we will start, we are ready to start with the second part of the info day. So we will get into more practical aspect. And the first presentation will be from Luisa about drafting and submitting your proposal. So Luisa, the floor is yours.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Perfect. So, welcome back on my side. So today we will explore the key steps in drafting and submitting a high quality proposal. So some of you are new to the process, some of you are more experienced. Well, in this session, can you hear me? Now?
Oh. Yeah, maybe we switch. Just switch.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. I take this one.
And now is it better? Perfect.
So, well, we will provide you some tips during this session that are based on lessons learned from previous calls. And with that, we want to help you ensure that your proposal will stand out. So let's dive in. And well, we need to master 3 key elements in order to submit successfully the proposal. And this is the terminology. So you will need to understand the precise language that is used in proposals because some key terms will guide how your proposal will be structured. Then we need to ensure the quality of the proposal. So you have to make it clear, detailed, and easy to read and thus evaluate. And there is also an applicant's checklist. So how to ensure that all required documents and steps are completed. So we will break down these steps one by one. So in understanding terminology then, we have to distinguish, well, to see what the key concepts are. And in CEF regulation, projects are synonymous with actions. So please be clear when you are referring to the proposed action or whether you speak about the envisioned CBRS status project. And then you also have to know what a work package is. These are major subdivisions of the project. So for example, we have project management. We may have the preparation of key studies such as the CBA or the environmental impact assessment. And work packages can run either in parallel or sequentially. And this gives you some flexibility in your planning. Then digging deeper, we have the tasks. So these are subdivisions of work within a work package. For example, we can have a work package on project management, and this could include tasks like coordination meetings or drafting a cooperation agreement. So when estimating, there is a specific column there. You would have to provide the percentage of subcontracting required for each task. And those tasks will be then also translated in a subcontracting table. So please avoid defining subtasks, because here we focus on higher level planning. Then we have more terms, such as milestones. Think of them as key control points to monitor your progress. For example, this could be the signature of a contract or completing the documents for a permit. And we reach deliverables. These are tangible outputs like studies or reports or designs that result from your project. Deliverables and milestone. This is easily, there can be some confusions there, we have seen. So deliverables should complement milestones. They do not need to be directly linked to them. Then going further, with regards to the quality of your proposal, think of what evaluators might look for. So it is your responsibility as an applicant to demonstrate how your proposal addresses the award criteria. So opt for simplicity, avoid jargon, use clear language, accessible language. Then opt for information accessibility. Make everything easy to find. Well, the evaluation is based solely on the content you provide. Evaluators will not request additional details. So this is why it is very important to place all the information under the section it should be placed. And then we have annexes. Please include all the mandatory annexes, and you can also use voluntary ones such as maps or graphs, and try to use them effectively because they can really help clarify your points. Further down into the intervention logic of your project, well, you must clearly define the what, the who, how, when, and why of your project. So, what is the project about? What are the technical objectives? You have to provide a concise summary that captures the core of your project. Who is responsible for delivering the project? You have to define the project's leadership and the structure, the team structure, the consortium. How will the objectives be achieved and by when? You have to break down the project timeline and your methodology in getting there. And why is this action important? What are the expected outcomes? You have to describe the broader significance of your project and its anticipated impact. So answering these key questions in detail, it's vital to demonstrate the value of your proposal. Let's make this more concrete, and here are some examples. What then? It can be engineering studies to gather data for a front-end engineering design stage. Who? You have to clearly define the team responsible for each step of the process and also include subcontractors. How and when? You have to group activities into logical work packages and use tasks, milestones, and deliverables to outline the timeline. And why? You have to explain and demonstrate the contribution of each activity to the broader CBRS objective. So how you deliver this? Think about your consortium setup, because a well-structured consortium is vital to your project success. So you have to carefully select each entity, ensuring that they bring both capacity and stability. And you have to plan for your long-term collaboration from the start. So the coordinator has a very clearly defined role, oversees the project, ensures successful execution, financial management, and reports to the stakeholders. So choose an entity that is best suited based on the operational and the financial capacity, as Beatrice mentioned earlier. Then we have affiliated entities. So these are entities that are closely linked to the beneficiaries. You have to demonstrate the legal or the financial tie with the beneficiary, and they provide specialized expertise and resources. So it is advisable and much recommended to add affiliated wisely during the planning stage. Adding them later, post-submission, might require amendments to the grant agreement, and this can delay the project. Then going into the project structure and defining the work packages. So work package should clearly match its description have defined objectives. So for example, we have a work package on the preparation of an environmental impact assessment. What is the objective? To prepare documentation for the environmental impact assessment. Which tasks could lead us there? Data collection, legal drafting, consultation. What are the milestones? Well, we have to select the subcontractor and we have to get to the delivery of the first set of documents. And what is our tangible output? It's the finalized environmental impact assessment. So some tips to structure your work packages is to always include a first work package for project management. Again, as Patricia mentioned, aim for up to 10% maximum of total project costs for that. So that project management work package needs to be managed by the project coordinator to ensure smooth and centralized oversight. Then group tasks into clear and concise work packages and aim for 3 to 5 work packages. This is the ideal range because it allows us to balance planning and ease of management. And please focus on essentials. So the application form is meant to outline the project structure. So highlight key deliverables and note smaller details. Then define your milestones. So each work package must include at least 2 milestones, one as a start point, the beginning of a task or a phase, and one as an end point, so the successful completion of the task. So ensure that those milestones are easily verified. They are defined, consistent, and trustworthy. And in order to track your progress over time, aim to set 1 milestone every 12 months to keep track of progress effectively. Again, some examples. Let's think of we have a contract signing as a first milestone. So we have a project that officially begins with the signing of the environmental assessment contract. That is in March 2024. Then we aim to monitor the progress midway. So the contractor submits a detailed progress report, which is reviewed and approved by the beneficiary. That's in a year later. And then by the end of 2025, we have the environmental impact assessment approval. So it means that this is a milestone where we have the approval and it marks the successful completion of the project phase. What is the expected level of detail that you have to go into when preparing your application? Well, it is important to focus on the big picture and structure your proposal for maximum impact. So how you do that? How do you do that? You have to keep it simple. You have to aim for 1 to 2 milestones per year and use a control point logic for these milestones. So set clear, well-defined points of control, key approvals, contract signings, or construction phases. You have to group deliverables logically. You can use summaries for sensitive deliverables. You have to keep the number of deliverables manageable and aim for maximum 1 deliverable per month on average. It can be less, of course. They have to deliver and correspond to your tasks. And you have to do all that while being consistent and coherent, because a strong proposal, remember, tells a unified story across all its parts. So the goal is to establish a seamless connection across all elements of the proposal. Think of a common thread running through it, and ensure that each work package logically flows into the next with deliverables that map to the objective, and ensure that all timelines throughout the proposal, so in the application form, in the Gantt chart, in the annexes, are all consistent and reflect the proposed project flow. So by looking into that, paying attention and ensuring alignment and consistency, well, you improve the readability of the proposal and strengthen your case. And you have to make this proposal transparent. You have to be clear. Clarity is crucial. So specify your budget focus. When you refer in studies, you have to provide a clear breakdown of staff costs and subcontracting, and limit equipment purchases to essential items only. And when you talk about work projects, you have to emphasize the planned subcontracting and the procurement activities. And please be precise and transparent. So please avoid ambiguous terms such as pilot or demo, and point out clearly how the CEF funding will directly support specific activities, purchases, or outcomes. And this way you can show evaluators how each cost that you refer to is purposeful and aligned with project objectives and optimized for funding requirements. In terms of the project duration, the deadlines, you can define the start and the end dates of your project proposal. So select the project proposal, the project timeline in a way that is feasible. So we have 3 options for project start dates. The first one is that the start date can be the same as the grant agreement signature date. Then we can have a fixed date after the grant agreement signature, which is something that is agreed during a grant agreement preparation process. Or you can have a date before the grant agreement signature, but never before the submission deadline. So as Beatrice mentioned earlier, all projects must close by the 31st of December 2030. And then referring to the documents and the annexes and how they are all complete. We have a checklist. So application form part A, it is online. It is structured data that is introduced directly into the funding and tenders portal. Then we have application form part B, which is a Word document. It's filled out and uploaded as a PDF. We have a detailed budget per work package, an Excel table. We have a time table or Gantt chart, which is a template provided under the reference documents in the funding and tenders portal. Then we will ask you to provide member state letters of support, and they must be specific to the action proposed. Then there is the environmental compliance file. Again, this is applicable for works and studies with physical intervention, and it needs to be completed in full. For studies without physical intervention, you only have to click the relevant option inside the file and upload the document. Additionally, you have to provide annual activity reports, which are the applicant's activity report and not the CBRS annual report. And you also have to provide us with a list of previous projects. So include key projects from the last 4 years. And there is a section in the application form part B for that. But works have some further supporting documents that are required. And this is an updated cost-benefit analysis, a thorough business plan, including assessments that show non-commercial viability, and a fully fledged and signed cooperation agreement. Going further into the environmental compliance file. So as we mentioned, if your project has a physical intervention, be it works or studies, this is a mandatory file. So each applicant and each member state involved must complete it. And you have to ensure that the competent authority signs off certifying that there is no impact on Natura 2000 sites. So for studies without physical intervention, you can see the image. You have to click only the relevant option and upload the document. So going further into environmental compliance, so think of this file as a continuation of what was highlighted in the CBRS status ESR. So that document highlighted critical areas of concern, and through this environmental compliance file, you can have a roadmap for addressing these areas with targeted actions while focusing on environmental responsibility and sustainable practices. So bear in mind that the stronger that the concerns were expressed, the higher the expectations. And the expectations for your responses are directly linked to the nature and severity of the concerns expressed. So through this file, we need to see your commitment, and we need to see regular updates and assessments, and that foster trust and engagement. And then in terms of annual activity reports, well, again, these are very crucial documents. They are needed by evaluators and by the agency to verify the operational capacity of each applicant or of the beneficiaries. Again, this is not the CBRS annual progress report, but rather it's a regular activity report that is normally prepared for your board, for your shareholders, or for public release. There are some exceptions to it. So public bodies are organizations with member states, TSOs, and international organizations are not required to submit this report. Then in terms of the letters of support from member states, please obtain member state support letters. So each member state concerned must issue a letter of support from its ministry directly responsible for the implementation of the cooperation agreement. And how do we define the member state concerned? So for projects with a physical presence, this is the member state where the project will take place. For studies or projects without physical interventions, it refers to the member state of the applicant. And there are cases also where a regional authority signs the letter of support. But if that happens, please ensure that the regional authority has the official competence for implementing the CBRS project, and please provide documentation of the region's competence to support the validity of this authorization. And going into our final applicants checklist. You will have to first review your proposal to confirm it matches the scope and objectives outlined in the 2025 work program. You have to mind the deadline, which is January 16, 2025. So set a reminder plan ahead. Please avoid last-minute submissions because technical issues can happen more often than you may think. Once you submit, double check the submission status. So please ensure that it is marked as submitted, because it can happen that it has not been, and you don't want to risk that. So while preparing your proposal, encode all sections of Part A directly into the Funding and Tenders platform, and ensure that every section is accurately filled out. Once Part A is encoded, move to Part B. Upload the necessary documents and attach all required annexes and supporting files. And then, please remember to proofread throughout your proposal. Proofread it carefully, double check and triple check to ensure clarity, precision, and consistency throughout all annexes and files. And submit the proposal using the mandatory application forms and templates that are available on the portal. Because if you do not, they could be ineligible. So now, as I close, please remember that evaluators can only assess what you provide. So for your benefit, make it clear, coherent, and complete. And by following these steps, you can maximize your chances for success. So thank you for your attention. Now we'll hand it over to Gianluca.
Thank you, Luisa. I'll encourage you to put your question in the chat as well, and we will, I think we will group them by, take them in a bulk, but please go ahead with your questions. Maybe I go through maybe first the budget, and then we come back to this first part if there are a few questions on this first part. So first, let me go through the budget, and then we come back to the question. But go ahead with using the chat so that we can then answer as many as possible in the Q&A. For the budget, so I will go through basically three aspects: the cost category, the budget table per work package, and the public procurement aspect. Basically, you will have two areas where you can insert you will have to insert financials elements or budgetary aspect of your proposal. So first of all, it's the part A of the proposal where you will encode the cost category. So we will go through one by one in the following slides. So there are 5 cost categories. So A to E, personnel, subcontracting, purchase, other cost categories, and indirect cost. They need to be encoded per participant and affiliated entity. Now, if you go to the next slide, we'll see the overview. What you can see in the portal when you enter in the proposal in part A. So you have a big table there. So my main warning there is that there are some cost categories that are mentioned in the table, but they are not applicable for these specific calls. So the table is a general table for funding and then the portal. So be aware that, for example, there are listed indirect costs, and these are not eligible. So the list of cost categories that are eligible for this call, which is actually the same for the previous call for those who have already participated and are familiar with our CBRS Works and Study call, you can find it in the section 10 of the call document. And I'll go through one by one. So next slide. The first one is the personnel cost. So you have basically 3 types of personnel cost that you can use. Employees is category A1, self-employed natural persons category A2, and persons who are seconded by third parties is the category A3. You have also category 4 for SME owners. It's a little bit less common for CEF, but it's also an option there. My main message there is that if you are in doubt on which of the if the cost that you want to use for your project is eligible and in which category, have a look at the annotated grant agreement, which is the model grant agreement commented version that is available in the funding and tender portal and provides a lot of example for each cost categories. So in the next slide, you'll see the subcontracting cost. This is another key category, sometimes the most important, especially for studies, but often also for works, depending on the structure of the project. So it's really about the contract for goods, works, and services, which are part of the proposed project tasks. So basically, when you have a task that, for example, talks about environmental impact assessment study, and you want to subcontract this study, this has to be conceived as a subcontracted cost, so category B. The cost needs to be to take place in the eligible country unless it is agreed by the granting authority. So this can be done during the grant agreement preparation or throughout the implementation of the project. And there is the whole aspect of value for money, no conflict of interest. I will come back later on specific slides, as well as the point on public procurement. Again, you find here annotated grant agreement references when you have a doubt. Bear in mind that it's not possible to subcontract to affiliated entities. So in case you have affiliated entities, these cannot be considered subcontractors in your proposal. Similar category, but for purchase cost, well, C1 and C2, it's actually specific. C1 is travel and subsistence cost. And for the coal, we are talking about actual cost only, so no lump sum. C2 is the equipment. Here again, it's only full cost. There's no depreciation system. So equipment, when you buy a specific machine, for example, or a piece of equipment that you needed for the project, or other goods, works, and services. So now you may consider them falling as subcontractors. Sometimes it's a little bit tricky to understand the difference. And the main difference is being that if that particular activity is not explicitly mentioned in a task, so it's not explicitly a task, then you may opt for purchase cost, other goods, works, and services. For example, you may have fees for licensing, for example, and this is a typical case where usually you don't have it as a task, but it's an important cost, and in that case, you could have it as a purchase cost. Again, you have the reference to the annotated grant agreement, where you find many examples in the document. There are possibly other costs, but it's very restricted to this goal. So you may have synergetic elements or outermost regions elements. These are in principle eligible, but it's not. The rest is not eligible. So financial support to third parties or studies or land purchase or indirect cost. Again, reference to the to those costs in the annotated grant agreement is to be found in this slide. Bear in mind that there are other ineligible costs. These are listed in the call section 10, and that refers to the VAT, refers to the in-kind contribution. They can be declared, but as cost neutral, and cost for a specific project website for the project. This is not eligible. A sub-page in an existing website, this is eligible as a cost, but not a separate website. Okay, if we see now the second element of the budget that you will have to fill in is the work package part. So it's an Excel table that you can download from the portal, and there you will find several sheets. And basically, it is about articulating those cost categories, but via a work package logic. So in the next slide, you will see how it works. So you have a first tab where you basically need to encode the project number and the acronym, so basic information. Then you encode in the second tab a work package name and a funding rate. Funding rate is always 50%. Basically, you have few exceptions. Avoid to encode, I don't know, 43 or 75 or 30%. Anything different from 50 will need to be corrected. You may not want to have the full 50% of the whole cost. In that case, for example, you may encode 0%, but nothing different from 50%. But yeah, my main message is to put everything at 50%. That would be good for the grant agreement preparation in case your project is selected, otherwise it creates trouble. And you have to indicate the participant name in the tab 3. And then you have tab 4 where you will have to encode per reporting period your cost per work package linked to the participant. The reporting period, you will have to decide how many reporting periods. As a rule of thumb, project up to 36 months, they normally have one single reporting period, unless there's really a specific reference, so reason. So normally you have to encode only in the first column there. Don't forget to encode tab 5, where you have to encode the value from the part A and the value of coming automatically from the previous tab, so that the system automatically detects if there is any inconsistencies between the two. And in that case, be reminded that if there is a difference between what you have encoded in part A and what you have encoded in the Excel part B, it is the structured data that prevails, so it means what is encoded in part A. So try to avoid any inconsistency, especially sometimes what happens is that you have a first indication, and as it goes in your preparation of the proposal, you may decide for different figures, and you may have rounding differences, so that is always well, better to avoid when you submit your proposal. Prepare really the accounting even before, so think about how you will be how you will organize your accounting during the project. Now for the public procurement, depending on the applicant status, you may have to apply public procurement rules, so whether you are considered as a contracting authority or contracting entity according to the public procurement directives. And in that case, well, there's no way out. You apply the directive and the related national legislation. In any case, let's assume that you are a private entity and you are not considered a contracted entity or contracting authority. You need to apply sound financial management principle. This is crucial because otherwise your cost will simply be considered ineligible. So this aspect will be verified during the implementation of the payment request. But also these are typical elements that are scrutinized for ex post auditing. So it's very important that we pay attention, that you pay attention to the public procurement aspect and in general to the respect of sound financial management principle and the principle being of economy, efficiency and effectiveness. And in any event, the idea is to ensure that you select in your subcontractor based on best value for money. And how to ensure that if you are not subject to public procurement rules, and if you are not, for example, you don't have specific rules in your organization, well, the very, very, very least, we really ask to have free quotes, or at least to request free quotes, better to have free offers. This is one simple way to trace that you have searched for the best value for money. It doesn't mean that you always have to select the lowest cost. That's one of the options. but best value for money ratio, it's is also is really the principle where you factor in all your principles and criteria for the selection of procurement, including the price, and you trace it, and you ensure that you have selected the best proposal. The other element that is very important in public procurement is to avoid conflict of interest. So these two elements are crucial and are typically scrutinized in audits. Yeah, you see in the slide, I've listed also elements on transparency and equal treatment and non-discrimination. These are all key principles to respect in order to ensure that you can demonstrate that you have selected your proposals of tenders according to the best value for money. In the proposal part A, there is a specific section in the work plan where you have the status of contracting procedure authorization. It was evoked in the previous questions in the session before. So there we asked you to list all the contracts that have already been taken or selected, that are already running, so to say, at the moment of the submission, as well as the foreseen contract. Of course, these are estimation in that case, so they may vary, but it gives a good overview of what you are looking to procure, their respected type of activities and their magnitude, and also if you have already an idea of what is going to be the procedure for them attached to those selection. And then last but not least, an important element regarding fraud, and if especially in private procurement you think you detect any fraud, please don't hesitate to get in touch to the competent authority that at a European level is Olaf. So I think I'm done. Yes, on the budget. Maybe we pause a second to see, because I think there were a couple of questions on the previous section. Yes, I see. So one from Lisa. What level of authority is required for the letter of support? Does it need to be signed by a minister? Will be a deputy secretary general or relevant ministry be acceptable? It needs to be an official that can engage the organization. So often we have ministerial level, but it's not mandatory. So that's something that we leave it really up to the applicant and to the member state to decide which one is the level. It can be a high-ranked official, or it can be a politician like a minister or vice minister. So that's something flexible, but it depends on the national context. I continue with the questions in the chat. I see also Dennis, you raised your hand. Let me go through the chat and then I'll give you the floor. So from Sasha, you have a hand, so he was already in the chat, I guess. Yeah. So this is the second works proposal from Sasha. The question: can you please confirm that we can use the same member state agreement as for our last works application? Overall agreement support from Ministry for the whole project, and only need to update the letter of support with specific reference to the current application. Indeed, I mean the cooperation agreement stays the same. You don't have to change it. This you have it for the CBRS status project. What we need is a new letter supporting this specific action. So correct. Then Dennis, on retroactive start date, the call mentioned that the retroactive start date might be exceptionally granted for justified reason. Could you give the example of acceptable reason? If we would like to start the tender process before signing grant agreement, could this be a reason considered as eligible cost? Yes, I mean, yeah, the reason must be linked to the rationale of the proposal. So if in your case, or when you submit your proposal, you show that it's important and you start the selection of a tender, for example, obviously you do it on your own risk, so to say, because if the project is not approved, well, of course, you won't get funding for that. But in case it's approved, and let's say you submit your project on the 16th of January, and you put a starting date on the 16th of January, explaining that there are already ongoing procedures to select the tender and so on and so forth. And this, for example, will take place, I don't know, by the 1st of February. That's typical the type of things we accept during grant agreement preparation. Guidance on eligibility. Is there an updated guidance document on the eligibility of cost under CEF, similar to the one available in 2018? So I guess you refer to CEF 1. There's no specific guidance on eligibility because we are in a corporate system now, so as we say, so basically the guidance on eligibility is the annotated grant agreement I was referring to. It's a very detailed and comprehensive document. I think it makes something about 140 pages. So you really have for each cost categories several pages of explanation on examples of eligibility. So it refers probably to similar to what you were used to for the previous case of CEF1. Keep going through the chat, but minding of the timing. Let me see if I managed to go through all of them. Model terms of reference. Is there a current equivalence to model term of reference to the certificate of financial statement? Previously find Annex 7 of grant agreement. So the certificate of financial statement is available in the document center in the funding and tender portal. So if you go to the I think it's guidance and documents, something like that, yeah, section, then you have to select the program and then you will find it. Yes, you can download it. Joint project management cost. I hope I'm not going too fast, so tell me if it starts to be difficult to follow. How should you manage a different payment system when there is a cross-border joint project management team? Additional question, should each company reimburse to employee? Okay, this, I mean, we can follow up. Maybe we can also do a Q&A to explain. There can be, I mean, there's no prescriptive approach. There can be very different models, but the basic, and I think this is also something that is actually tackled in the annotated grant agreement. Pardon? And, but basic principle is that cost that a given beneficiary claims have to be borne by that given beneficiary. So that's the starting point, and then there is a way to arrange that. Maybe I invite you to have a look at the annotated grant agreement on this element, and there should be the answer, but we can follow up on that. Let's see, maybe I stop there and then I'll try to elaborate on the I see there are many other questions, but I'm probably running out of time for the other presentation. So first I go through, I give the floor to Gloria with the idea that we tackle all the other questions and also any other that may come in the Q&A session at the end of this session. So Gloria, I see you are online. I think you can hear me. Yeah, good.
Yes.
The floor is yours.
Do you hear me? Hello, good afternoon, everybody. I will explain very quickly how to submit a proposal in the portal. First of all, a couple of important points to keep in mind. Whoever is involved in the preparation of a proposal should have a EU login. So it's very important that you verify that all people involved in the preparation of a proposal have this EU login, formerly known as ECAS. And if this is not the case, here you have the link to register and to get this login account, EU login account. Another important point is that all entities that want to apply for a grant, EU grant, must have a PIC. The PIC is the unique participant identification code that is needed to be able to apply for funding in the EU funding and tender portal. So it's very important that you verify that all entities involved in a proposal have a peak. And also it is very important that you check that the peaks, if you already have one or several, for depending on the number of partners, that they are all up to date. It's really crucial also that the people mentioned, so the layer, for instance, are still in the organization, because if then your proposal is selected, this will be the person, the layer, who will receive all messages from us. So please take a bit of time also to check all these administrative issues before you start preparing your proposal. Next slide, please. Thank you. Then you can go into the EU funding and tenders portal to look for the call. The call is divided in 2 topics, so there are 2 topic pages. You can find the call in the portal. There are various ways of finding the call. You can check by EU program, so you can select the Connecting Europe Facility program and then write Cross-border Renewable Energy, or you can simply use the direct link provided in this page, and then you will find this the call page with the 2 topics. Next slide, please. In the topic pages, you will find all relevant information about the call. You will find the budget details, the deadline, the topic description, the objectives of the topic and of a call in general. You can also find some questions and answers. I will give you more details later. And very important, next slide, please. You can access to the submission service by clicking on Start Submission. Next slide, please. And once you click on submission, then you get to this page where you can start creating your proposal. As I said before, you will be asked to input the peak of your organization. If you do not remember the peak, you can do a search by name. If, on the other hand, when you arrive here, you realize that you do not have a peak, then you will have to create it via the link provided at the beginning. Here, you will also be asked to provide the acronym of the proposal and to choose the type of participant. Next slide, please. Then here you can give more details, like the details of the contact person, state the role in the proposal, and also provide a short summary of your presentation, of your proposal. Sorry. Then in the next slide, you can start submitting your proposal. The applications form is made up of 2 parts. Part A is to be filled in online, and it contains mainly administrative information. And part B, it's the technical part to be so here you can see from download part B templates, you can download the mandatory template, then you will have to fill it in offline and to upload it again as a PDF. And the same goes for the annexes. Here you can see the list of annexes. The list of annexes is different depending on the type of proposal, if it is a studies or a work proposal. But we will see more details later on. Next slide, please. So part A, the administrative part, as I said before, it's mainly to be filled in. It's to be filled in online, and most parts will be filled in automatically once you write the PIC, once you input the PIC number. Then the other information to be given is the proposal acronym, the title, the duration of the project, and the short abstract. You will also have to tick some declarations. And then, as I said, most of the information will come from the participant register once you write your PIC. You will also have to indicate the budget, as already explained by Gianluca, and then under other questions, you will have to select the countries involved in the application. And this is all to be filled out online. Next slide, please. Then I would say the most important part is the part B, the technical description of the action. As I said before, you will have to download the template from the portal, then to fill it in offline, and then to upload it again as a PDF. For the other annexes, next slide, please. You will have no, sorry, you can stay on the other, but it doesn't matter. For the other annexes, you will have an indication. You will have to do the same. You will have to download the templates from the portal. Then you will have to fill them in offline and to upload them. But you will have an indication of the type of document that you can upload. Sometimes it's a PDF, sometimes it can be an Excel. And also you will have in the portal an indication of the maximum size of the file, of the document to be uploaded. Next slide, please. And it's very important that you always validate and the proposal, and you save, and also that you check for validation errors before you can submit it. As I said before, in the topic page, you can also find a list of topic-related questions and answers for both works and studies. If nonetheless you still have questions, you can write to CINEA Energy course, to our functional mailbox. The CEB Renew team will reply to you. And if you have IT questions, here you have also the links to contact the help desk. And you have also a link to the online manual for any important, or for any on how to submit your application. That's all from me. Thanks a lot for your attention. And now I give the floor to Giulia.
Thank you, Gloria. I see Julia is connecting. That's the mic.
Yes. Hello. Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for having me during this info day. Today, I will try to give you a broad overview of the main legal provisions of our grant agreement that we call model grant agreement before the signature. So I think we missed a slide. Okay, sorry. So the grant agreement is the contract that you will sign with us in case your proposal will be selected for funding. And this is a very important document because it describes your rights and obligation vis-a-vis of us, so your granting authority, and more importantly, how much money you will get. Please notice that our grant agreement, it is a corporate document which has been agreed with the Commission services, and it is a standard document that cannot be changed for any reason. And the document will be signed by you electronically, so via the funding and tender portal, to which I will simply refer as the portal. And I would invite you to read carefully this document, and also to pay attention to the information listed under the Annex 5, where you will find detailed several rights and obligations, such as the intellectual property rights, or the communication activities that you are required to carry out in case you will get our funding. In the grant agreement, it is important to clarify who does what. So now we're going to see the role carried out by each member of a project. So we have, as you can see in the slide, beneficiary, affiliated entities, associated partner, and subcontractor. Let's see who does what more in detail. The beneficiary, of course, is the one who signed the grant agreements. It is possible that a project is implemented by several beneficiaries, and in this case, we highly recommend to have a consortium agreement, and also to appoint a coordinator, which will be our communication channel. But we will talk a little bit more about the role of coordinator afterwards. The beneficiaries, they must accede to the grant by signing the accession form, and of course, everything must be done via the portal. The affiliated entity also may play a very important role during the implementation of the project. They have same rights and obligation as the beneficiaries. They do not sign the grant agreement, but they need to fulfill the same eligibility criteria and, of course, do not fall in one of the exclusion criteria. More importantly, by affiliated entity, we consider those entities which have capital or legal link with the beneficiary in accordance to the Article 187 of the financial regulation. Associated partner, you are not obliged to have an associated partner in your project, of course, but the implementation of certain tasks may be delegated an associated partner. This entity may not charge cost for the tasks carried out, as those will not be eligible, but they have to comply with the obligation which are listed under the grant agreement, and they may or not be linked to the consortium. And about subcontractor, so you can decide to delegate implementation of part of the action to an external member that we call subcontractor. In this case, the eligible costs will be the price charged by the subcontractor to you, and you will be responsible for the work carried out by your subcontractor, because then the agency won't have any sort of contractual link with this entity. And please remember to include the estimated cost for your subcontracting under the Annex 2 of your proposal. I briefly mentioned before the coordinator. So you must appoint a coordinator in case your project sets like in case there are several beneficiaries who are supposed to implement your project. And who is this coordinator? First of all, it's our communication channel. So is the one receiving every kind of communication by us and informing the agency about the implementation of your project. And very important to know is that the coordinator tasks cannot be delegated to anybody. The coordinator is in charge of monitoring then the implementation of the action. At the same time, since the coordinator acts as our communication channel, is also the one who will submit pre-financing guarantees in case there is a necessity to submit a pre-financing guarantee, to request and reviews documents, and to submit to us the deliverable and reports within the deadline. But it's also the one who is in charge of distributing payments among beneficiaries. So we can see that the coordinator plays a very important role, and at the same time, beneficiaries, they keep their own obligation, such as to make sure that all information which are registered in the portal, they are maintained up to date. So in case there is any change, let's say a change of an address in your entity, this must be duly communicated by us from you to by you to us. And it also the beneficiary responsibility to submit to the coordinator all the mandatory documents that the agency must receive during the project implementation, such as the periodic report, such as deliverables, if any, such as the pre-financing guarantee when it's necessary to have one. And all this kind of sharing of communication and information must be done via the portal. So let me give you some more information about the role of the affiliated entities. First of all, as we said, they do not sign the grant agreement, and because the beneficiary remain responsible for the work carried out by the affiliated entities. But most importantly, affiliated entities are those which have a legal or capital link with the beneficiaries. When we talk about legal link, we have to refer to the permanent legal structure that an entity may have with other beneficiary. Legal link may be represented also by a contractual cooperation agreement, which cannot be limited only to the action. This is when we talk about legal link. When we talk about capital link, it may be very useful to refer to the directive number 34 from 2013. If you have a look to this directive, you will see that there is a different kind of control that can be used in order to identify and to assess a link between an affiliated entity of a beneficiary. For example, we talk about capital link and in case of subsidiaries or daughter companies. So when entities are directly or indirectly controlled by the beneficiary, that can be controlled in case of a parent company. And so in case it is the beneficiary which is directly or indirectly controlled by other entity, or we can talk about control also in case beneficiaries and affiliated entities, they find themselves under the same conditions, so they're kind of linked, and which is the case of daughter companies. I would like to give you some more information about the notion of subcontracting, since we see the use of subcontracting being very, we see subcontracting being used a lot during our project implementation. First of all, it is important to underline that subcontracts concern the implementation of part of the project tasks. So it is not possible to subcontract 100% of your project to a third entity. And of course, for example, management tasks can never be subcontracted. As I briefly mentioned before, in case you will have a subcontractor, you will be the one having a contractual link with this company, not us. And so it is the beneficiary or the beneficiaries which remain responsible vis-a-vis of the agency for the work carried out by the subcontractors. In terms of cost, the eligible cost will be the price charged by the subcontractor to you, which of course may include also profit margin in favor of the subcontractor. But most importantly, when we talk about subcontracting, you have to remember that subcontracts must be awarded in compliance with the sound financial management principles, which imply the compliance with the best value for money principle or lowest price, or public procurement rules in case they are applicable, and of course, absence of conflict of interest. So when during the project implementation, you are required to report to us on the evolution of your project, and the language for the reporting is of course English. We make a distinction between the continuous reporting and the periodic reporting. By continuous reporting, we refer to the need to be informed about any deliverables and milestones your project is producing, and of course this communication must be shared with us via the portal. By periodic reporting, we refer to the mandatory reports that must be submitted to the agency within certain deadline, and the periodic reports, they include a technical and financial part. Please let me also remember you that according to the Annex 5, there must be a need to send these reports also to the member states which support the action. And so it is very important you remember to comply with this requirement. When we talk about payments, it is important to remember that we can divide the payment into three main categories. So we have pre-financing, key interim, and payment of the balance. The pre-financing is a cash flow that the agency will give it to you to start implementing your project. So at the very beginning, after the signature of the grant agreement. However, interim payment may be even more than one, and these are payments you will receive during the whole duration of the project. And the payment of the balance, of course, you will receive it at the moment of the calculation of the whole grant amount. And this payment will be done based on the cost incurred by you during the project implementation and assessed as eligible by the agency. This means that the balance may be as much as the agreed grant amount at the very start of the project, or even less in case a certain cost will be assessed as not eligible by us. The grant agreement can be amended during its duration. So you have the right to request this amendment to us. A request must be submitted via the portal and must be duly justified. Please remember that an amendment request cannot have as a purpose to call into question the award of the grant, and that the grant agreement can be modified only while it is in force and before the payment of the balance. So here I would like to end my presentation to inform you that you as a beneficiary, you may suspend the implementation of the action in exceptional circumstances, like in a case of force majeure, and such a request must be processed via the portal. But please remember that the agency may reduce the grant amount or suspend or terminate your grant agreement in case we identified irregularities, errors, fraud, serious breach of your obligation. So we are talking about the obligations which are detailed in the grant agreement, or in case we identify major delays that may compromise the action implementation, meaning that the objective of the action will be no longer achieved. Thank you very much for the attention, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Julia and Gloria, on these last two important presentation, one on the how to use the portal in case you're not familiar with, and the model grant agreement. It's a lot of details, but it's important that you are aware of it. As Beatrice said, it's not a negotiable type of agreement. That's even more important that you take into account at least the most important or the most crucial clauses. And also, by going through that, we wanted to really ensure you understand the difference between the different roles, because indeed it's actually a decision that you take today when you prepare your application about who is the coordinator, who is the beneficiary, who is the affiliated entity, etc. That will have an impact after if your project is approved. So our advice is to go through those elements once you are eventually mature with your proposal, and eventually ask also your legal department to go through the model in case they have questions. If they clarify it before, it's better than later during the grant agreement preparation process in case of your project is approved. Now it's time for the question and answer. I tried to answer to probably most of the questions raised via the chat, but please let me know. I think I see, was it a hand raised at some point? No, now it's not anymore. Yeah, is it again? Yes, Dennis.
Hi, Gianluca. Thank
Hi.
you for the floor. Thank you for it's gotten a little bit dark here. Thank you for answering most of my questions. I basically had a couple of questions for the last presentation, the two presentations before that. I wanted to ask, and I put it in the chat as well. what is normally the liability under the model grant agreement when there are two beneficiaries? Because we've started drafting a consortium agreement, and we wanted to basically make it so that it doesn't contradict what we put in the consortium agreement. We don't want it to contradict the model grant agreement. And then another question, it concerns the subcontracting. Most of what we envision for the current project would be subcontracting, as these are activities that we as beneficiaries cannot conduct ourselves. So we wanted to ask, is it okay if 85, maybe 90% of the studies are actually subcontracted? Since earlier Ms. Koda mentioned that the project management is about 10%. And the last question for the last presentation was related to the DESCA Horizon 2.0 model of consortium agreements. We found it online, and when we were looking at the annotated grant agreement, it referred to it. And I wanted to ask, is it okay for us to use this as a basis for a consortium agreement for the CBRES program? Is it accepted, and does it include all the relevant details that would be required at a later stage when we sign a grant agreement? Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Yeah, I mean, I'm not familiar with the details of the model you refer to that is used in Horizon, but I assume that I see that. I mean, it's the one of the most commonly used model. We don't prescribe any specific model for the consortium agreement, so actually it's really your choice. But yes, as I see, I mean, it's very much used in Horizon, so I guess it could be suitable. I mean, if you consider it fine, we will certainly not question it. First thing, but another important thing about the consortium agreement is that even though the model grant agreement states that it's mandatory, well, it is because it's encouraged to use it, because in a consortium, well, it's better to have written agreement that regulates a series of details that are important to prevent disputes or that regulates dispute settlements, but it's not something that will be blocking. So in case in the end you will decide not to have it, it doesn't block the grant agreement of the project to be signed. For the subcontracting part, I mean, it really depends on the project. I mean, often we have very high percentage of subcontracting costs, especially for studies. Every proposal is different, so it depends how if it makes sense, if that's the best way to deal with. Obviously, one of the first thing we ask, or evaluator asks, when looking at proposal and seeing the distribution of cost categories, especially seeing the high subcontracting costs, is to see whether this part of the activity couldn't be done internally. So I think one important element that you should include in your proposal is the rationale for that, because often the applicants are also specialized companies in the renewable sector, for example. So the first, let's say, natural reflex of evaluator would be, well, we would expect that the expertise is internal, but then any organization works differently, and we know that we have actually also in approved project a very high subcontracting cost in some cases, but what is important is that things are explained. There's no threshold. I cannot tell you 50%, 70%, 90% or 30% is fine. It's really, if it makes sense in the application, it's very well justified and clarified the rationale. I can tell you that there's no threshold beyond which you will be disqualified per se. On the liability, I think the standard clause is that the coordinator is liable for the pre-financing amount, that's full pre-financing amount, and then there is a limited liability for the beneficiaries for their amount, so up to their amount, I think.
So the coordinator, if I may, sorry, Gianluca, to interrupt you. So the coordinator is always responsible in case of recoveries, even if the beneficiary, the coordinator is not the one having received any undue payments. However, in case of termination of the beneficiary, then we go directly against the beneficiary, which will be terminated. And in case we have already processed the payment of the balance, we will go directly against the beneficiary. So let's say that in general, it is always the coordinator who plays vis-a-vis of the granting authority a very important role, because it is our communication channel and is the one responsible to distribute the payments, but actually also to pay us back in case we will realize that some undue payments have been processed.
Does it answer the questions, all the three various elements? Yeah, Dennis.
Thank you again. Yes, thank you for the last answer. This helps a lot. Because you asked for all the questions, if I can go back to, I have a question about the PIC numbers. We realized that there's an issue with our PIC number. There was a duplicate in the system, which is not registered by our company, and we followed the advice on the IT helpline, and we got to the validation service, and it's been, I think, since the 11th, close to a month since we've gotten back from the validation service. We registered a new PIC number, so now there is a duplicate PIC numbers for our company, and we started the application and put our own PIC number there, the new one, not the one that was a duplicate. But the validation services haven't gotten back to us if this is okay and whether they'll remove the old one. And secondly, last time during the presentation, it was mentioned that when there are two beneficiaries to an action, we need to put both PIC numbers there. And during the presentation on the platform, I didn't see a place, and I also didn't see this in the platform as well, a place where we can put the second PIC number of our co-beneficiary. And then I had a question on the work packages, but I'll ask it in a second.
Okay. On the PICIC, Gloria reconnected.
Yes.
She's the expert.
Yeah. First of all, I will start from the second question. So in the, I don't know if it's possible to go back to my presentation to slide 89. It's because yeah, maybe I went a bit too quick. So basically here you can put even in the slide before you put the PIC number of the main beneficiary, let's say, but then you have the possibility, then you go to the next slide, please. Then when you go, you see you have save and go to next step. In the next step, you will have a slide where at the bottom it's written add partner, not a slide, sorry, a page where you will have the possibility to add partners. And when you click on add partner, it's in blue at the bottom, you will get another little, there will be something else opening and you will be able to put the PIC number of the partners. And you can do this as many times as needed to add partners. You have also the possibility to add associated partners, for instance, or affiliated entities as well, all in this page. But first you have to save this, the page that I'm showing where you have to enter the role in the proposal, the acronym, and so on. I don't know if you have your draft proposal at hand and you can verify that, but I mean, if you want, I can also then send you by email the slide, but it's really
Shouldn't be necessary. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
And then for
So
the issue of the duplicate of PICs, so if I understood well, you have 2 PICs, and why did you have to create a second one? I didn't get that.
Apparently when we checked the participant register, our company was already there. And then we asked which email account is the owner of the registration and the funding and tenders portal, and it turned out to be somebody who is a student somewhere. It's not even part of our organization. And the IT help desk said that the best way forward is to create a duplicate and then from within the system, contact validation services. And we've contacted them on the 11th and then on the 28th again, and there's still nothing. So
Okay.
we just wanted to make sure that this is not going to create any future issues.
Yeah, no, no. At some point, maybe, I mean, normally the advice is never to create a duplicate, to have only one peak. It's a unique number per entity. But in this case, indeed, if you lose access, that's why I was mentioning before that it's very important that you always make sure that the person who, if the layer, the person who is the contact person in the participant register leaves, it's very important that it's replaced before the person leaves, so that you do not lose access to the peak. But then for the issue with the validation services, I mean, I know that they're very busy, so maybe it takes a bit of time for them to react, but I don't see any problem if you continue with that peak, the newly created peak. Then if your proposal is selected, then it will be the time to get in touch with us, and then we will get in touch with the validation service to make sure that the right peak is validated. And the other one, they will do something that it's called deprecation, so the two peaks will be put together. So it's not an issue. Now for the application, you can create a new peak and apply without problems. Then if the proposal is selected, it will be solved later on.
Okay, so in worst case will be solved during grant agreement preparation.
Yeah.
But yeah,
before normally before.
Before,
yeah.
But in worst case, so
yeah.
you can go ahead with your proposal. And Dennis, you had another question on the work package.
I have two in total. The first one is on whether a need analysis is required. We were looking at the application form part A, and towards the end where we have a project description section. There's a question asking, one of the dashes there refers to a needs analysis. So when we're describing the project, we should describe what the needs of the project are. And I was wondering, is there a specific type of needs analysis that is required for this that includes particular indicators? This is the first question, and if you want, I'll go into the other one, which is related to the work packages. We were discussing the work packages with our colleagues, and we were very specific to read the instructions in the application form on which part is what. And I was surprised to see, for instance, the deliverables in the presentation today. I got the impression that the deliverables are more like the output or the outcome of the entire work package, which is something that I've seen in CEF Energy actions for PCIs, where you would get one deliverable basically for an activity, and the action consists of activities. But here, when we were reading the examples of what is a deliverable and what it means, we got the impression that the work package consists of activities. Each activity could be broken down in different tasks, and then in the end, to each task corresponds one deliverable. And then we got the impression that the milestones are the bigger part, which basically the milestone would logically be the outcome. So the result of an activity, if an activity has 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 tasks, doesn't matter how many, the milestone would be this result, while the deliverable would be each individual result of each individual task. At least this is the description that is currently given. This is what we understood in the end. And then one final question on the work packages section. In the description, it says that every work package should be logically split into activities. But then when you look at the table that is provided underneath, you have the option of there is a activity in brackets work package, and then there's the list of tasks and deliverables. And we thought that in the platform it wouldn't be possible, since activity in the table is equated to a work package, to put more than one activity that consists of a work package. And if you want, I can give more specific examples if something needs clearing up. But these were my questions. Thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you. Yeah, Luisa, you want to step in on that?
Yes, of course. Well, hello, Dennis, again. Well, with response to your work packages structure, there is the work package. It has an objective, and you think of tasks that help you reach that objective. It can be one task or several tasks. Those tasks do not necessarily need to be translated into a tangible deliverable all the time. So this rule of one deliverable per task is not set in stone. There can be tasks that are sequential and lead to an extra task where you can have the final completion and the final output. And then milestones are not, they are linked to deliverables, but are not greater or smaller. Milestones are, think of them as checkpoints in time. Think of them as the pit stops where you think that you see how far you've come, where you measure your progress, and when you can pat yourself on the back and say, okay, I made it to here and I signed this agreement with the contractor, and for example, and the contractor can then embark on a certain study, and that certain study would be the deliverable, for example, and that can be further down in time. So if you put this in a Gantt chart, and you can see the timeline, you can see that the milestones are when you start or in the middle and midway your activity, and deliverables can be at the end or in the middle, let's say, if you visualize it. So I don't know if that answers your question. So the deliverables are tangible, they're results, while milestones are control points. So which need to be, though, verifiable. So if you say, oh yes, we have a milestone, and yes, I have signed this contract, you need to be able to prove that you signed this contract, for example. Or if you say you have a milestone and this is a kickoff meeting, for example, you need to have proof that the kickoff meeting happened, and you need to provide the minutes, which could be, for example, verified by the project's steering committee. Examples like this. I don't know if it is clearer for you now.
Maybe if I can just have one addition to this. As I said, I understand when you say that the milestones are the control points and the deliverables are the tangible results. I understand this. It's just when we were reading the description of each item in the application form, it gave us a different impression than what we heard today. Because, for instance, in the application form, right next to deliverables, there in brackets it says outcomes or outputs. And for instance, all the other CEF funded studies that I've seen before, the deliverable from an activity was something big. The big result, for instance, if you were doing a feasibility study and this is what you wanted to do, then the deliverable would have been feasibility study has been done. Or if you were implementing an information system, let's say, the deliverable, the outcome would have been this system is implemented and works. And this is why I was asking, because in the example it says deliverables are something small. Let's say you're doing a hydrological study, and the hydrological report of this study would be the result. But then this hydrological report, let's say, is part of a broader area of reports that equate to a feasibility study. And then the feasibility study would be the milestone, the big thing that you reach. And this is why, because when we're reading the descriptions, it just turns it over a bit. Although it says output and outcome, which is of the big thing, let's say the outcome of the work package, in the end, the examples that are given for deliverable in the application form are in a way smaller. tangible results than the bigger milestones, the control points. That is why.
No, I see, Dennis. I mean, your point. I mean, it depends. I mean, in project management, you have those type of concept, and it's true that it varies very much how, you know, what you put under the word deliverable or output or results and impact. It depends very much on the context. No, no. In case of CBRS, I mean, we don't want to go too much granular, but it's probably what the impression you had. It's if that's the case for PCI, it's a little bit different in the sense that indeed, let's say, for example, you have a work package where you have foreseen for the whole work package an environmental impact assessment. In our understanding, the deliverable should include the main studies in it, like, I don't know, BAT studies or whatever, and single deliverables. Then it's up to you to decide whether the single deliverable is sensitive, so you don't want to disclose the full deliverable, so you can put summary of it or executive summary of it. That's perfectly fine, but we don't want to wait until the very end of the work package to see some tangible results. So in this sense, maybe we are a little bit more granular in that. Yeah. For the needs analysis, I went back to the questions here on the beginning. Now, there's no specific idea behind in terms of you know, specific indicators, so on and so forth. It's really how to describe the situation at the start and what considering the wider context of the CBRS project status, so the whole context, what do you need at that point in time when you propose this action? So yeah, there's nothing really precise and specific or prescriptive in mind. It really varies depending on the project. So it's really about describing what is the starting point and what do you need at that point in time. And if it is, for example, we need to go through engineering studies or environmental studies because of this and that is the kind of needs analysis we are looking for. Okay, I'm looking also timing because I'll be beyond schedule now. Just checking if there are other questions, friends. And I also answered, or we answered through the chat to also other participants' questions. So just let me double check if everybody is happy or clear with the answer provided. I think there were questions from Lisa, from Sasha, and others. So if there are any other raised hand from other participants. Doesn't seem the case. Dennis, you have raised hand. Do you have another question? Muted.
Last one, I promise. Yeah. And it was referring to activities because we're looking at the part B of the application form. And as I said, in the rules for this, it says, you know, that there could be multiple activities, but in the table, we don't see a way to, let's say, break down a work package in 3 main activities, which have their tasks there.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, the form, it's a little bit confusing there, to be honest, because it mixes activities with work packages in the same word. Yeah, no, the form basically you have one box and it's interchangeable, so to say, the word work package and activities in the form. So you have basically one box where you describe globally the work package, which in the form is called activity. And then you can break it down per tasks. So you can always decide to have only one task, as I answered to one of your previous questions, if you consider that one task is enough, and depending on the work package. But you can articulate in several tasks what you have described it in the box activity. So yeah, that's the rationale.
Because I think it would get really confusing. We let's say we do environmental impact assessment that you know most of the other projects would also have to do something like this in a study space, and it has 7 activities which equate to a total amount of, let's say, 27 tasks, because there are so many things that need to be done. And then here the question was, because it is asked from us to be logically split when we start filling in the table, then we'll just have 27 tasks, and then the way that the table is done and described, we should also have 27 deliverables after these 27 tasks. And the point is, there is no place for us to, let's say that the first 4 tasks are for activity 1, which makes sense. Let's call it an environmental impact assessment, and then the other 3 are for appropriate assessment. The other 5 are for an SEA or whichever other assessment is relevant under this section. And this was the question, because in the rules it says we can do it, but then when we get to the table and filling it in, we can't. And what we don't want to do is in the end confuse whoever is going to be evaluating the project proposal. And the question was, which line of reasoning should we take? Should we comply with what is written in the application form and have one deliverable for one task? Or should we do what was said today in the presentation, that we write out, we can split it, all the work packages and activities. We can put all the tasks in there with a little bit more meaty description of what the task is. When it's obvious by itself, hydrological study, you don't have to qualify it more than that. But then explain what the task is, and then for not for each task, have a tangible deliverable, and then use this split, which is different than, in my opinion, it's different than what is put in the application form, that qualifies milestones as control points and deliverables as the results that show progress.
So the application form doesn't prescribe you to have one deliverable per each task. So you can have it, but you can also have tasks that have no deliverable. Now, the way you interpret the task, it changes. We have seen very different cases. We have seen really work packages that are articulated under really several numbers of tasks, because the applicant prefer to really break it down and maybe eventually have it very simple task, but very clear, and then simply separated. And in other cases, we had one or two comprehensive tasks where we see a long description that says, for example, we will do in this task this and that studies, and it's a long list of studies eventually. And if that's clear from the description, that is fair enough. And then you can have, you can cover each of the study via the deliverable, or you can decide, well, no, I just pick this and that deliverable because these are crucial, and we make it more practical, more simple, and that's fine, and it's fine like that. I mean, my main message is here: we are not prescripting on the way you do it. It has to be logical to you in the way you explain it. And then, of course, the aim is that the evaluator will find it logical and understandable. So, but that's difficult to generalize in a general advice there.
Thank you very much. No more questions. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I see no hands raised. Let me see something in the chat. Yes, question from Marco about the presentation webinar available. Planning for Monday, so if everything goes well with the techniques and so on, we will have the recording and the PowerPoint online. And will the question in the chat also come back in the FAQ section? Yes, what we do, we screen this FAQ, and if there are questions that are not yet tackled via question and answer or FAQ in the function attendant portal, we add it. And we will notify when things will be also online. So I think that's, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep, clear? Okay, good. All right, I don't see any more questions. So thank you for staying with us. It was dense, but I hope informative. And whenever you go back to the presentation, to the FAQ, to the document, etc., and if you see that there are things that are not clear for whatever reason, get in touch with us via the functional mailbox. We will either point you to the document or to the answer if it is already online, or we will try to clarify it via an FAQ, and in that case, things will be online for everyone. Good luck, everyone. We hope to see you numerous and high quality proposal, and we stay in touch for anything you need for the giving call.
Yes.
Have a nice evening.
Thank you very much.
Goodbye.
Thank you.